Hi, Dr. Hoyt. So I'm going to talk with a young man about his experiences with the DBT concept of surf the urge. I've been talking about it as it applies to myself because I get urges to, go on the internet and do stupid things, and maybe you can relate to that. Spending time on your phone and you can't even remember why you're doing that, and you're going on Facebook or Instagram and scrolling, and it's really stupid, and you spent a whole long time doing it because you had an urge to do it and you got overly involved. So we're going to change that up a little bit here and use that surf the urge skill for substance use addiction. And that's not something that I've used surf the urge for, I don't think. But my friend here has, and he can tell us a lot about what to do and how it's normal to get an urge and a good way for an addict to respond to that urge. So can you give the listeners a little bit of information about what it's like for an addict to get an urge and how to respond to it?
For an addict to get an urge, okay, I would say first of all, if you are an addict, you are going to get many more urges than the regular person, whether it's for substance or for what Dr. Hoyt is talking about, which is just the internet. You're going to encounter urges more times than anyone else, and you're probably going to feel it a lot stronger than other people. Why? Because if you are an addict, you not have control over your feelings or substances or whatever your addiction is. That's the whole point of addiction. You don't have control over it. And it's a bit scary, to be quite honest, but your mind's going to justify it. And that's what we are going to correct. Actually, you can never really correct that. If you're an addict, you're going to have excuses, always, of why you should keep feeding into your addiction, why you should keep drinking, doing drugs, internet, sex addiction. You're going to have excuses like no one's business. And we have to forget about these excuses and use our rational mind. Is that right, Dr. Hoyt?
Well, yeah, you were talking before about the difference between the wise mind of an addict and how a wise mind knows how to negotiate. So for me, using my wise mind produces a compromise, a negotiation. But you said that for an addict, it doesn't work that way?
Well, in DBT, we refer to our different states of mind: the wise mind, the emotional mind, and the rational mind. And no, for regular people, when you use your wise mind, you're making wise decisions. It's balance. So, as an analogy or metaphor, whatever you want to call this, I'm not too smart. For example, if you're in a social setting and other people are drinking beer, right, and you're the addict and they're drinking a couple, your wise mind, like Dr. Hoyt says, leaves room for negotiation because everyone else is using their wise mind saying, hey, I'm just going to have a couple beers maybe, right, or maybe 3. But if you're an addict, you're going to negotiate into having a couple beers, maybe just 3, because you're going to act like you're just a regular Joe, but you are not. You are an addict, and once you have 2 or 3 beers, you're going to have 2 or 3 more. You will not be able to stop. It's cyclical, and it may go on for days, years, hours.
So
months.
Let me get this straight. So you're saying that for an addict, if you use your wise mind, you're going to end up opening the door, negotiating, and telling yourself, oh, well, it's okay because I'm only going to have 1 or 2. I'm not going to overdo.
Correct.
Your emotional mind would want you to overdo. So
yes,
in order to surf the urge as an addict, what step do you take instead of trying to reach your wise mind? What do you do instead?
So this is going to be the tricky part. DBT, the more you do it, it gets easier. I'm going to bring in a DBT skill to use to get you to this next step, because if you're an addict, you have to take more steps to prevent these things. Stop, take a step back, observe, proceed with caution. Use those steps to tell yourself that you have to use your rational mind, not your wise mind. So when you say stop, you're stopping. Everyone's drinking, everyone's using, you're stopping. Taking a step back. Don't make a decision yet. Observe. When you're observing, that's when you tell yourself, use your rational mind. You cannot drink You cannot do this drug. You cannot feed in at all to your addiction, because if you are an addict like me, you will go too far every time. And once you observe that, proceed with caution, which is the last step of stop, is just not using. It sounds so simple coming from just anyone, even from an addict. It sounds so simple to just say, don't use. And it is as simple as not using, but if you are an addict like me, I feel it, I know what you're going through, and these are the steps that, not the only steps you can take to help you get sober or stay sober or make better decisions, but this is 100% like bulletproof way to ensure that if you follow this, it will work. You will not use in that setting. If you say stop, take a step back, observe, proceed with caution, get into your rational mind, do not negotiate, do not use.
So I'm actually learning something here, because what I'm hearing him saying is that if you do what we would normally do, which is kind of combine the rational mind with the emotion mind, what you're going to do is end up with a thinking error, because the compromise your wise mind will make is the thinking error that sounds like, it is okay to use because I'm only going to do it once. It's okay to use because it's only beer. So I get that if we go to wise mind, we're opening the door to a thinking error. So can you tell me about the thinking errors that led to your most recent drinking experience and what that had to do with your wise mind?
Okay, wow. I work in restaurants. By the way, my name's Aiden. I'm not that guy that wears sunglasses inside all the time. I'm just, I'm not saying my last name, and I'm wearing this simply to protect my identity for legal purposes. I work in restaurants, primarily. In restaurants, if you're an addict, I don't really recommend working in a restaurant, but hey, everyone's got to make a living, and if you're really down to get better, you'll get better. But working in a restaurant, I drink a lot of beer. A lot of beer. After work, I go, hey, bud. I think to myself, hey, bud, you worked so hard today. You did a great job. You kicked ass, or kicked butt. You did good, right? You deserve a beer. Or, hey, it's hot out. It's hot. Your boss is happy with the work you've done. You're done. Beer sounds good. Or, hey, everyone else around me is drinking a beer right now because we just clocked out and we work at a restaurant, and that's what's socially accepted. All of those excuses, all of those thoughts went through my mind and convinced me. I convinced myself, which is not hard to convince yourself to use if you're an addict. I convinced myself that it was okay based off of the simple ideas or simple thoughts that it's hot out, a beer would be nice. I worked nicely, shift's over, celebrate with beer. It's the weekend warrior. Go drink a beer. You did a good week. You worked hard. Everyone around me is drinking. Might as well drink, right? So these sound so normal. These sound like harmless thoughts because they are harmless thoughts to the regular Joe. But if you're an addict, you are not a regular Joe. You are like me, and one leads to another, you're snowballing, and you're going down that hill faster than anyone would have expected, and there's nothing you will be able to do about it unless you use these skills or learn how to stop. And this is a video that we're trying to be able to show people, or anyone if they're willing to listen, or if this applies to them, on how to surf the urge. Surfing the urge is really saying no on an internal level, and those are the steps to say no. Stop. Use that DBT skill. And then use your rational mind. No room for negotiation if you're an addict. Those are the only things you need to remember in order to stay sober.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.